Hey there, Saber fans, Shamim here. Today we have a very special custom saber to show off to you guys. Y'all might remember the Sacrifice saber that I've made several versions of. That was a post-Death Star explosion Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber. A sort of what if Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber was on the Death Star in A New Hope when it exploded, what might it look like? Well, this is the sister saber. The circle is now complete, and we have Darth Vader's post-Death Star 2 explosion lightsaber from Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Introducing the Salvation. The name is derived from the dialogue exchange between Luke and Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi, where Luke says, "No, you're coming with me. I'll not leave you here. I've got to save you." And Vader responds, "You already have, Luke." So that's where the name Salvation comes from, that the Father was able to attain redemption and salvation through the efforts of his Son. We started this saber with an empty Korbanth DV6. I've installed a couple of those over the last few years. You've seen on my channel. So this is now taking it to the extreme. We started out by working with it on the grinding wheel out in the garage and just took various parts of the hilt and pushed it up against a fast spinning grinding wheel. Then we went in with Dremel with a cutting wheel and just gave it a few extra nicks and dings and scratches. Went in with an engraving tip again with the Dremel and traced out all of the cracks running throughout the length of the hilt. When it came to the grips, the Sacrifices, it was a similar process that I've used on the original Sacrifice as well as, subsequent Sacrifice hilts that I've made, but none of those hilts had grips, and so it was a new experience working on the DV6 that does have grips. What would hard plastic or resin look like if it melted, in a fiery explosion? Well, I didn't have access to a fiery explosion, but I did have a soldering iron, and so I used the soldering iron to melt the grips, adding in the detail little by little until they ended up very, very charred looking. And I'm super, super pleased with how the grips turned out. The grips are probably my favorite part of this saber. In addition, we have an exposed crack hole here. The blade will shine through, the red LED will shine through here. But then we also have a little bit further down a much deeper crack that shows some of the internal components and electronics and wiring of the saber. You can see that it's all jumbled and broken and splitting out. It's very much inspired and reminiscent of the shot where Luke sees Vader's severed hand, and you see a bunch of components and wires and rods and things sticking out of his wrist. With the singed smoke still coming off of the leather around his glove and the internal components. So that's the feeling I wanted to evoke with this little bit of exposed circuitry there. And we also have a little bit more exposed circuitry down here at the bottom sticking up out of the pommel. There is a fine wire mesh covering the hole that was ripped in the bottom of the hilt. That provides cover for the speaker, because otherwise, without the wire mesh, you'd just be able to poke the speaker through the hole down here where some of the metal had burst open. I wanted to show that it had broken apart here and down here, and that the energy from the lightsaber had escaped and burst out as the Death Star was exploding around it. So we have that, and we have the holes. Internally, we're running a Prism 5.5 soundboard by Plector Labs. It is running my new Salvation sound font, which is a sister font to Sacrifice, which was used on the Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber. So Salvation is, as well as Sacrifice, are both available on saberfont.com in case you like the font and you want to use it on one of your own weathered sabers. The LED is a Luxon Tri-Rebel Deep Red Lime for a really lovely deep red main blade with lime coming in and mixing for a really gorgeous yellow flash on clash. It's quite nice. It's a 28mm SM bass speaker, and in the chassis and in this hilt, the resonance is crazy loud. So this is a painful speaker, a painful saber to listen to, and that's just the way I like it. It should be painful. I'm not a masochist, or am I? Internally, the battery is 18650 lithium ion. It's a permanently fixed chassis. I think it's from Almost to Mordor is the name of the company on Shapeways. It's the same chassis I've used on most of the DV6 hilts I've installed. Top button here is main activation, and then the bottom one is auxiliary. Let's go ahead and get her started. I basically remixed that scene where Luke is taking off Darth Vader's helmet and seeing his father for the first and last time. That gorgeous rendition of the Imperial March mixed in with Vader's normal breathing and wheezy breathing as the helmet comes off. So here we go, Salvation. Yeah, Vader's wheezy, raspy breathing mixed in with the hum. There's 5 banks currently on this saber. The first 4 are just salvation, each with a different boot. So let's just quick cycle through and hear the boot up sounds.
I'll not leave you here. I've got to save you.
You already have.
So that was, of course, the quote that I mentioned, which is the inspiration for the name behind the saber, Salvation.
You were right. You were right about me. Tell your sister you were right.
It's the last time that we hear the Imperial March in Return of the Jedi as Darth Vader passes on. And the last bank on the saber is basically a music track, featuring my favorite musical cue from the entire saga, which is when Luke starts teetering on the edge of the dark side, as Vader says, "If you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she, your sister, will." And Luke screams, "Never," and starts going in with a rage against his father and nearly toppling to the dark side before pulling himself back. So here we go, the music player. We won't do the whole track, just a little bit of it. Again, we won't play through the whole thing, you get the idea, but the song does loop. So if you want to have it on your shelf and just have that music playing from your lightsaber, you can, which is awesome. As I mentioned, the chassis is permanently affixed, so to access the SD card, you unscrew the bottom grip section of the lightsaber hilt. That slides off, revealing a very charred and damaged-looking chassis to match the exterior of the hilt. A little bit of weathering on the face of the speaker. You have a speaker, you have a metal, wire mesh grate there covering the bottom half of the soundboard, leaving easy access to your SD card. There's your recharge port down there, and then some wire mesh covering the back side of the other electronics. And this chassis was weathered in the same way that I did the grips, with a soldering iron and then some paint. Let's put you back in. Briefly, I do want to show both of these on screen at the same time. This, of course, is the original sacrifice hilt that I made. Back, I believe it's a Nanobiscotti V2. That's how long ago it was that I made the first sacrifice. But the circle is now complete, and you have 2 Masters, 2 Jedi, 1 Fallen, 1... Anyway, so you have 2 Masters, you have 2 lightsabers, 2 different Death Stars, 2 explosions, 2 lightsabers. One of them made the ultimate sacrifice so that the other could eventually achieve the ultimate salvation and return to the light side from the dark. Both of them becoming one with the Force, a master and an apprentice. Let's get him fired up.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Together on screen for the first time. Very exciting. Alright. I'll put that guy back there for shameless self-promotion. Speaking of shameless self-promotion, this guy was a passion project, a labor of love, but I will be putting it up for sale. Just having the sacrifice in my possession is sufficient. And I would really like to give this guy a home for someone who loves Darth Vader and Return of the Jedi as much as I do. Currently, it is one of a kind in the world. I might eventually make a couple extra, just a few. Maybe I'll keep one in my personal collection. But I've made a few different sacrifice hilts. It would be poetic also to make a few different salvation hilts so that there's equal number of them throughout the world. But anyway, if you're interested in purchasing the Salvation custom saber, the link is below. Details are below. You can shoot me a message to purchase. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun to make. I'm super pleased with the grips and with everything else. I'm looking at the weathering from several years ago to now, and I think my technique has improved a little bit, and I'm very, very pleased with it, and I'm so glad to be able to share it with you all here on this video. So I hope you've all enjoyed. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.